Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Game on Tuesday night against, how about this? They played East Texas A&M. I'll be transparent, people. I've been covering college sports a long time. I think I know about as much on college sports as anybody. Can't lie. Your boy has never heard of East Texas A&M. So shout out to East Texas A&M. They went to Gamble Pavilion on Tuesday night, and UConn, in a not surprising result, beat East Texas A&M 81-46. Here's the issue. UConn only, what's the right way to put it? The margin in the second half was only 13 points. They got out to an early first half lead. They kind of took their foot off the gas. They only outscored East Texas A&M, by 13 in the second half in what ended up being a 35-point win. Well, I'll tell you what, 13-point margin in the second half. Dan Hurley was not happy about that. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Just comically bad. Second half rebounding so far below standard. Ball security throughout the game. It's been a long time since we've been that bad. To go negative assist to turnover ratio. We're one of the best passing and ball security teams in the country. So I think at times we played hard, but once we got up to 37 with 12 minutes to go, and it just turned into just a debacle out there.
So there's Dan Hurley calling Tuesday night's performance comically bad. Again, I apologize if the audio wasn't great there. Nothing we could do. A couple of the reporters on the scene had it, so I apologize the audio wasn't great. But how about Dan Hurley calling his team's second half performance comically bad? Okay. So a couple things stand out. Three things stand out. One, not wrong. Two, I actually think that's a great sign for UConn and a bad sign for everybody else. Let's go ahead and dive in very quickly. In terms of why he's not wrong, listen, UConn, I'll be transparent. I'm a UConn guy. I'm not going to deny it. Oh, my hair. I need a haircut. Listen, watch every UConn game. And what I would say is each of the last two seasons, it really did feel like pretty early on, you're like, oh, this team is really good and they can absolutely win a national championship. Okay. 2 years ago, remember they went to the PK85 event that was in Portland and destroyed everybody, get to number 2 in the country in December. They had a couple bad weeks in January, but they were the best team from start to finish in college basketball that year. Last year was like, wow. I remember like second or third game, it was like, oh my goodness, this team is unbelievable. I was like, they might be better than last year. And so UConn, I said it last year, they were kind of like the most boring team in college basketball to actually talk about, because first the conversation was, are they good enough to go back to back? In like 3 games, you're like, yeah, they are. Then it's like, are they better than the year before? And it's like probably by January, you're like, oh, this team has a chance to be better. So what is different this year? The team has not come out of the gates full speed ahead. Now, that's not a bad thing because, first off, they are 4-0, but they've had some struggles. They played New Hampshire early in the season, and in that game against New Hampshire, they were only up by 9 at the half. Obviously, they weren't great in the second half against East Texas A&M. And I think it's worth noting, coming into Tuesday night, they actually had the number 1 point differential in the second half in a positive way. And it was because they were struggling out of the gate in these early season games. So they're not playing well. But why I love that from Dan Hurley is because, and why I'd be excited if I'm a UConn fan, is because it means that, to use a Dan Hurleyism, foot on gas. The foot is still on the gas. He's not taking anything less than the standard. And that's what would have me so excited if I was a UConn fan, if I was somebody who followed this team, whatever. The team's been fine. And the schedule is certainly going to get tougher. They go to Maui this week. They play Baylor at home in a couple weeks, et cetera, et cetera. Gonzaga on a neutral court. But at the same time, what would have me excited is that Dan Hurley, when he says we were comically bad, that's his way of using the media of telling his players, yeah, whatever that was that I just saw, That is not going to be tolerated here. And we've talked about it through the years with all of these great coaches, with Nick Saban, with Bill Belichick, with, I know he's not a great right now, but you read anything about Kurt Signetti, the new head coach at Indiana, and what those guys will tell you is we play to a standard. That was Nick Saban's famous line. We play to a standard. We don't play an opponent. We don't play to a score. We play to a standard. And so you ask anybody who played for Nick Saban, they'll tell you some of the times that he was the maddest would be after a 40-point win against a bad team as opposed to a 2-point win over a great team. Because he's saying, we didn't meet the standard today. Too many mistakes, too many penalties, too many turnovers, too many whatever. And that's what Dan Hurley was saying on Tuesday night. We didn't play to the UConn standard. We didn't play to the championship standard. To steal a great line from a great movie, no excuses, play like a champion, okay? That was what Dan Hurley was basically saying, was like, I'm sorry, but this is who we expect to be, and this is who we demand that you be. And if that's not good enough, we're going to find somebody else who will play to that standard because we're not going to tolerate it. So I love the quote from Dan Hurley. I love the transparency. I love the fact that he ain't putting up with crap from nobody. And if I'm a fan of another school, I'd be afraid because UConn is not even playing well and they're destroying everybody. And as somebody who has watched all of their games, like I'm sure a lot of UConn fans watching this video, watching the listening to the podcast, whatever will tell you, they haven't come close to playing their best. And they haven't come close to playing their best. And oh, by the way, they still have 4 guys scoring double figures, a 5th guy's averaging 9 points per game. And I still think they're kind of in figure it out mode. You look at some of the early season results, they weren't the best. The standard wasn't great. They could have played better, and they're still just trying to figure out their pieces. Jaden Ross, who had a monster dunk on Tuesday night, didn't even play in the first game. You're trying to figure out, how to fit in Liam McNeely, the freshman, Jalen Stewart, the sophomore, Solo Ball, the sophomore, Aiden Mahaney, the transfer. They've already shaken up the starting lineup, put Aiden Mahaney, the transfer in, moved Hassan Diarra back to the 6-man spot. So I could go on and on. But if I was a fan of another school, I would be very, 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 very afraid. Because Dan Hurley, he ain't taking crap from nobody, including his players. He's holding his team to a standard. And I think the cool thing really quickly, by the way, is we're going to find out just how much work UConn has to do here in the coming weeks. They go to Maui. They open the Maui Invitational Tuesday afternoon. I think it's 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific. I could be wrong. I want to say 8:30 local time. I think that's right. Where they play Memphis. Then from there, they could play Michigan State. Obviously, Iowa State's in that field. They're really good. Carolina's in that field. Producer Matt's Auburn Tigers. So we're going to find out very quickly how good UConn is. By the way, as you can see on the screen, we also have our Torres on UConn page. And also, Producer Matt, if we have the Mora Hurley 24 tee, go ahead, pop that on the screen really quick. We got a couple left. Obviously, we will not be making any more after this season is over. After the season is over, because it's going to be Mora Hurley on to the next ticket. But if you want a last minute Christmas gift or an early Christmas gift, we have a couple left. Once they're gone for good. So go ahead and get that Mora Hurley 24 tee if it is available. We may not have it visually, but you can get it at AaronTorresOnline.com.